On the last day, the risen Spawn went in search of his two greatest enemies, God and Satan. As he passed over the island of angels, he came upon the seraph, Sira the Mad, and he knew that the time had come to do battle with God's favorite podcaster.
Welcome back to another episode of Spawnography. I'm one of your hosts, Pierce Lyden, pronouns they, them, here with, as always,
George Marston, pronouns they, them, or she, her.
How are you, George?
You know, doing all right. Just hanging in there. Had a kind of weird day yesterday that I'm not necessarily going to get into on the podcast, but it was very stressful and managed to get through it. And today has been the opposite, quite chill. So I'm happy about that. It's the night of the State of the Union. I will, under no circumstances, be watching one fucking second of that.
No, you're not
I
a
will
fan?
watch. No, I'll be watching. I'll be watching Lenny Riefenstahl's footage of it, though.
Oof. Yeah, bad. The bad times continue in the real world.
Yeah, and you know what? Spawn's looking a lot like we're starting to look a lot like what's happening in Spawn.
Yeah, it's this week's backlash is against the U.S. men's hockey team, which rightfully so.
Yeah,
it is interesting
the
that
chaotic
we live in
evil men's hockey team as opposed to the lawful good women's hockey team.
Yeah. Which, like, okay, here's the thing: is that and it was a great game. I'm sure you didn't watch it, but it was a really good game.
I did watch some of the
the
figure
women's
skating.
the women's final was great. Yeah, that was really fun too. I always watch the figure skating. Anything on skates, I'm gonna watch it. Speed skating, figure skating, and technically bobsleds are kind of on skates if you think about
Fair.
it.
They're like it's like riding in a big ice skate.
Yeah,
I will
exactly.
say when my younger sibling was a kid, they were super into speed skater Bonnie Blair. Just really, really admired her, and we both played roller hockey. My sibling actually taught me how to skate on rollerblades. They're 4 years younger than me, but they taught me a few things in that way.
I remember the moment that speed skating, specifically United States speed skating, had a moment, which was when Apollo Ono was
Yeah,
crushing records, and I was like, he does have a great name,
yeah, for sure.
you know. One thing that
Sounds like a
annoyed me,
character from Star Wars in a way.
yeah, uh, yeah, 100%, a real glub shitto, Apollo Ono.
So my God, sorry. I was thinking more like Dash Rendar.
Oh
like
no, but like that's just kind
Solo.
that's like what you just call all the stuff. That's
No,
what
I know.
everything.
I I
Apollo
wasn't
Ono.
trying to call him Glup Shitto, but here we are, and we did, and actually, I stand by it. Sorry.
But no, now I lost my train of thought. Anyway, it doesn't
Apollo
matter.
Ono and speed skating had a moment.
They did, and I lost it. It doesn't matter. I'm never gonna get it back.
I robbed that from you, and for that I apologize.
That's fine. And
I
honestly, you probably
everyone's time.
You probably saved the listeners a stupid tangent about something dumb. Instead of
speed skating, all skating on ice, you might not realize it. Wet sport.
True, technically.
Wet sport. If it's too hot in the ice skating rink, I have discovered through my ice skatings in the South, condensation clouds will form in the rafters and it will rain in spots
I've
like
never seen that
lightning.
happen, thankfully.
Well, have you ever been ice skating in Tennessee?
No.
There you go.
Try to stay away from Tennessee if I can avoid it.
I mean, at this point, I guess I don't blame you.
But yeah, the world continues to burn. The world continues to turn. And we
Both of
continue.
those things kind of happening in Spawn.
Yeah, and we continue to cover Spawn where those things are happening. And we're wrapping up Armageddon today, which means we kind of are going to leave things in a very, who knows what can happen next kind of spot, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
This does feel a little bit like the end of an era in a purposeful
Definitely.
way.
It has real Return of the King energy in a lot of it, where it's like, and here's the ending of this plot line, and here's the ending of this plot line,
Yeah.
and here's the ending of this plot line. And it kind of breezes through some of it, but
I think we've said this about David Hine a couple times, is that at first we were like, we're not really sure what this guy's doing, but he was clearly hired to get some things done. And then as
Yeah.
it's gone on, we've kind of learned his voice a little bit, his sort of, storytelling approach over these, handful of issues. He's been here for like 10 issues at this point, which is like wild. It's flying by. And also it's become clear that there needs to be something of a hard reset in the Spawn universe, a very soft. This is about as close as Spawn gets to like a crisis.
Yeah, and I mean,
point.
well, I think it's smart in the sense that like you can't have that go on forever, Armageddon. You can't have it go on forever. You can't put it off forever either. If it's going to be the center of the book, it's got to be the thing that happens next. And there's some stuff that's left on the table that I'll be curious, if we get back into it at some point here. But yeah, I mean, we're kind of skipping right ahead into talking about Spawn rather than getting into much of the world. But
yeah, it's I don't have much to say about the actual real world because I don't know. It's weird the way that things, even like even at my job, like we dealt with a vendor that we deal with all the time. It's like, oh, by the way, my last day coming up. And we were like, oh, is everything okay? And I was like, oh, he's getting deported. Like, like,
Jesus.
Yeah, like it's like leave or get arrested, And it's like,
man, yeah. I mean, it's hard. Look, it's hard to think about or talk about anything else when fucking what else to call it but ethnic cleansing is happening in the United States. And I'm sure me even saying that on a podcast that few people listen to and fewer than that would expect me to have any other opinion.
Listen,
and I'm thankful for every one of you listeners, by the way.
Even you, FBI guy assigned to listen to all of our episodes.
That's right.
Even you.
Yeah.
Actually, I heard that's why our numbers are going through the roof. It's this is really getting around FBI headquarters, and we are pretty popular over there. Let me
they
just
love
tell
Spawn.
you.
They love comics.
No, they only like the tangents. They don't actually care about Spawn. They like when we talk about something different.
They're
For 15 minutes. Yeah.
They like to hear us talk shit about the FBI, like cocaine cash.
But
also it's hard to even talk about much of this shit without coming off like a hot take or whatever. There's so many things going on this week that are just absolute fucking chaos, and it feels like getting into any of it feels like being like, oh well, here's me taking a weird moral stand one way or a fucking another, and not in the way that like, oh well, like I can easily clearly say like fuck ICE, but there's just so much chaos happening in the world and things that are just unfolding that like,
we keep getting told, and this is true of you and I as kind of millennials, but we've kind of just like lived through so much in such a short period of time. And I don't even mean like traumatic, like tragic world events. I also just mean like the way the world changed so drastically through
that's kind of the hallmark of the millennial generation, supposedly, is that we lived through the changeover from no
analog to digital,
all computers. Yeah, exactly.
And I think that along with And
It's all
so
computer.
because so much of the world that we grew up with has disappeared, right? Like,
Yeah.
now that's a fact for every person who exists, right? Is like, you're always going to drive by something that you're like, 15 years ago this was a whatever. It's like my favorite thing to do
Yeah,
in New York.
exactly.
Is to point at things and be like, remember when that was a whatever. But it does cause like some like existential stress, and this sort of like idea that like you can't ever have a real impact because everything that you know is going to disappear. Weirdly, this conversation, I think, does wing together well with what we're talking about in Spawn today. But
True.
I do think that it is hard. I think a big reason that like so many of us become toy collectors and comic book collectors and start to care about stuff like that is because it's just some grasp on something that we can be like an expert in, kind of ostrich about, like stick our head in the sand and be like, all I'm going to care about for the next hour is like, in this case, Spawn, I
Well,
guess.
yeah,
But
diversion. And, as a mass consumer in a lot of ways, I don't know that I love the idea of mass consumption as a distraction, but
sure.
it's real. And, they say that if we get rid of all the people who it's coming to light, have done like bad shit,
Oh, that
we'll
everything will
lose.
collapse. I'm
But
like,
it's
bring
like
it
it's
on.
collapsing. It's all
Yeah,
collapsing. Think about where life was at the start of our lives. And I don't want to sound like old ass motherfucker, but I mean, I'm in my mid 40s at this point, early 40s anyway, going on my mid 40s. And I am an old ass motherfucker. And I do remember, rose colored glasses and everything. I do remember the evolution of the world from where we were to where we are.
yeah. It's very troubling because it's hard to be motivated to care about stuff when, especially too, like, we're pretty constantly, and not to use like a buzzy word, but like we're constantly gaslit into being told that like
Right.
what we've experienced wasn't the way that we experienced it. And like, it is increasingly clear that that it was like that everybody is lying, and like, not in a conspiracy theory way, but the thing about conspiracy theories is like a lot of them end up being like not
Well,
maybe 100%
there are
true, but
well, it's the difference between conspiracies and conspiracy theories.
yeah, fair.
Conspiracy theories are things that can never be proven, that make sense if you piece together a lot of things. Real conspiracies are things like an army of child abusers controlling all of the world's money in a way that has nothing to do with the many violent and hateful and like anti-Semitic, for example, conspiracy theories. It is
Fair.
about capitalists wielding money as power. And so that is a different thing that we can see in the open. It's there now, and even in legislation. I don't know. It's starting to feel like, even broaching this topic is starting to feel like being Q pilled or something, where it's like, okay, all this shit they were being
Yeah.
convinced of, it's almost true in reverse, and so much of it is so shocking, and it's hard to even know what could possibly be real, and you have to assume all of it is, because if even 1% of it is, the
Yeah,
world is fucked.
it's
And so
it's a real like boiling frog situation, right? Like
it almost feels, yeah, go ahead.
like we just keep going like, that doesn't seem right. We're pretty sure it's bad. And they're like, no,
and
no, no.
and
It's
well, now they're
totally
at the
fine.
point where they're just going, yeah, it's pretty bad, and we're all like, oh man, you
Well, now
guys are
they're at the
just
point where they're
happy
like, yeah,
about
it's
it.
pretty bad for you. And I'm like, no, no,
Exactly.
it's pretty bad for all of us. We're
Hmm.
you, me, we're the same.
Yeah, there's no you and
It,
us
it,
aside. Well,
it shouldn't be
that
there.
can't be
Well,
surmounted.
there are. Trust me, there
That
are.
can't be.
But
That
like,
can't. Not in a way that can't be solved through certain methods. We've said this so many times. These conversations start, and we start by saying, I don't want to talk about this.
and then we
And
have
then it's
to.
the only thing on your fucking mind. And
Yeah.
I want to say, to bring it back to Spawn, This is the story of an actual existential crisis
Yeah.
created by forces truly beyond human perception or control or influence, aside from Spawn himself, who was once a man. And it is, in a way, it's kind of cathartic for Spawn to be like, no, fuck this.
Yeah.
And then also, at the end of this, we'll talk about it. There's kind of a parable at the end with Spawn and the Mother of Miracles that I think kind of is what we need to be thinking about in our real lives. And we'll talk about that.
Yeah. It's a thing that we've brought up a few times, especially during this era of Spawn, during this David Hine era of Spawn, which is that, like, and when we talk about superhero comics in general, because we're both very big fans of them, is that, like, comic book characters do have to have things to punch. And that the frustration that you can sometimes have with comic books in general is that, like, your real problems can't be punched technically, like
Right.
they don't, not,
We've
and
talked
not,
at length about that, about
yeah.
how
And it's nice to it was actually nice to I liked these issues. I'll say that right off the top.
they were
uh
pretty fun. I mean, I have my issues with these issues, so to speak, but I think overall they're pretty entertaining. And one thing that I like about them, as again we'll get into, is that we kind of just get fully actualized Spawn. Finally, Al Simmons ascends to the level of power he's been promised over and over, and he actually knows and learns how to wield that power in a matter of pages. And to your point earlier when we started talking about David Hine, I think it's kind of become clear that he was brought in to not move the chains at this point, but to
Flap the wings.
yeah, sure, but to like bring it into port, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, excuse me, to steer the ship to its destination. And he does that pretty rapidly through these issues. Again, it's
Hmm.
kind of like a Return of the King thing, but I think he's able to get to a point where he can kind of detach himself from the 150 issues in a way that allows him to be like, okay, I don't have to repeat this again to be like, well, I know I need to do 30 more issues, so Spawn can't get all the answers right away. He skips that part and just goes from Spawn ascending to Spawn using the power he has gained from his ascent and coming to what seems like a final version of a resolution we've seen sort of repeated a couple times now.
Yeah. What's interesting too is that, like, Spawn's whole thing is not so much with great power comes great responsibility. It's more that with great power comes great sacrifice. And we get to kind of see that repeated as a theme here. And we get to see, like you said, a fully actualized Al Simmons react to that mantra, and as a way of pushing the book forward, in some way, reject that and get to say, I am finally going to make a choice for myself now that the powers that I have always imagined have controlled me and have to some extent uh, do not hold any sway.
Well,
And
and
yeah.
finish your thought. I'm so sorry.
No, it's a very, like, again, not to bring this back to politics, but I was thinking about how, like, boy, if you really just, like, substituted, you know, God and Satan here for Democrats and Republicans, and
Sure.
Mother of Miracles is maybe some other more progressive third option. Uh,
In a way, if we're going to go down that road, in a way, that would be the will of the people.
Sure, yeah, 100%. And there is I think Spawn leaves this story, and not to get ahead of ourselves, but does leave the story with the idea that a better world is possible. What does that
Well,
mean
that's
for Al we're gonna find out. But yeah.
well, and to your point, I think even beyond the idea of like, with great power comes great sacrifice, great responsibility, the ending here speaks to a question that has kind of boiled below the surface of the previous 160 issues that we've been reading, which is, what even is power? What
Yeah.
is control? Who truly has it? Where does it end? Who is allowed to take it, give it up? that sort of thing. And Al has been forced to ask these questions so many times because people just thrust their own will and their own power into him and be like, you're going to be our agent. And it's been heaven, hell, the green world, the mother of miracles, every different force, even, the curse tried to exact his will over Spawn and steal his body. Every situation he's been in, Jason Wynn did it to him in life. Malbolgia manipulated him. He has been forced to confront a deeper and deeper level of the fact that he has no power and no control. Essentially, he's gone through the many diadem layers of ego death to the point where he has truly reached the bottom by these issues. And the question of what is power is not necessarily answered, but it is given a response. And I think, in a way, that parable in Spawn speaks to something that is an adage that I follow. I have always loved with great power, there must come great responsibility. Of course, I grew up on Spider Man, it's there in our DNA.
Yep.
But I learned this from my therapist who I've worked with for years. He said this to me and it was almost like a revelation because I feel like I have faced the same issues as Spawn. What is power? What is control? What is responsibility? And he said to me, you only have to be responsible for the things you have power over.
Sure.
And that is very meaningful to me because, I can't change the crazy shit that's going on in the world, but I can advocate for it. I can support people in my communities and community efforts to overcome it. I can find ways of working through it that are within my power.
Yeah.
And I think that's almost been Spawn's struggle throughout the entire run of this is, at what point do I have enough power to take responsibility?
Yeah.
And at what point will people stop trying to thrust power onto me without explaining what I am then responsible for with this level of power?
Yeah, there's an additional, I think, analysis of this text that we are not equipped to really comment on effectively as two white critics. That has to do
Certainly.
directly with Al's identity as a black man and this deal that he made that essentially, put him as
Right. In
you know
servitude to a demon.
yeah, exactly. And that there's again, that's another read of this whole thing that I think it makes the ending of this kind of interesting.
It does.
That what
Well,
happens once you kind of do reach the end point of this
right.
relationship that he's had for this long. This
Well,
relationship with power specifically is what I mean.
absolutely. And again, I don't want to get too deep into trying to analyze the cultural implications of this.
Sure.
But from a very broad lens, there is something to the fact that by the end of this, after going through hell, having his body abused, scrutinized, stripped away, his humanity denied, taken over and over, there is something to the idea that at the end of this, spoiler alert, it's not that big a spoiler, we end up with Al Simmons, the man, once again, but seemingly disconnected from the Hellspawn entirely.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it's always been going. We've sort of looked for
Hell,
that.
we were there.
But
We were there 12 issues ago, and it kind of
exactly.
it's now coming back. So
Exactly.
it's
There was the time in Hellspawn. So the reason I say that now is, while we're having this conversation, I think that there is something to the idea that by the end of this, what he is a whole black man who can live in a society that might give him his own power to determine his fate in a way that perhaps society hasn't allowed many marginalized people, especially
Sure.
American society. And I think that does resonate. I think it is there. Again, white creators, for the most part, there have been some non-white creators, including, I believe, Philip Tan, but white writers. And so I don't want to say that, like, oh, that's where they've been going this whole time, but that is a reading of the ending that I think you can credibly extrapolate on some level, even if it's the subtext that we as readers are adding to it. I do think it's definitely there in some way. Now, there's some problematic stuff with that ending too, not necessarily that we'll get to. That's just some personal stuff for Al. Won't spoil it all.
Yeah.
But yeah, so now that we're 30 minutes into recording, Pierce, why don't you go ahead and hit me with the credits for Spawn number 162?
All right. Spawn number 162. Todd McFarlane Image Comics present what we're calling Armageddon Part 9. Story by David Hine. Phillips by Pencils Tan. Pencils by Philip Tan.
Hey, I'm Pencils Tan.
Like what do you do? I do Phillips. Inks by Danny Meeke, Alan Martinez, Ryan Wynn, and Crime Lab Studios. Lettering by Tom Warzakowski. Colors by Brian Haberlin, Andy Troy, and Ian Hannon. Production by Jay Photos. Cover by Philip Tan. Spawn editors Brian Haberlin and Todd McFarlane. Dedicated, I never heard of this guy, Robert Kirkman. I don't know. Doesn't ring a bell.
It's just like it could be anybody.
Could be anyone.
Honestly, could be literally anyone in the world.
So,
Robert Kirkman.
Yeah,
might as well be like John Smith.
Great. Spawn 161 summary is pretty good. It's 3 sentences. In case you forgot what happened last episode. The 4 horsemen are set upon the world. Spawn is reborn with the power of a god, and many, many people die.
Yep, it's pretty much
all
everybody.
You need to know.
In a way, it's thrilling to see a story get to this point too, because like there are so many stories where it's averted. You know what I mean? That's the usual superhero narrative is,
and everything
we can avert
fine.
this disaster and everything's fine. And there is a bit of a happy ending here, but at the same time, this story, the only way out is through.
Yeah, truly. And that happens to be Spawn's way most of the time.
Right.
But
again,
that is
a relatable feeling right now.
Yeah.
Okay,
and,
so we're going to open with a rare Tom Warzakowski L.
We're going to say it up top, which is the lettering in these captions is pretty abhorrent.
It's tough to read, especially because, as we will go deeper into this, some of the pages in these 2 issues have walls of captions like we haven't seen for many Spawn issues. But the art is great, and what we're seeing is Zira, who Spawn ran afoul of Zira in the last page of Spawn number 161, where she was drenching herself in the blood of a demon spawn that was pouring out of its neck cavity after she beheaded it. And she is reveling in the blood with her like weird kaiju creature partner thing kind of swirling around her. And she says, she's basically taunting Spawn, saying like, my heart is pounding like a bride on my wedding night. She's just ready and itching for this fight against what will likely and provably in a moment be the toughest opponent she's ever faced. After she says she's fought 1,000 battles and come out on the other side, and she's finally ready to meet her match.
This on the first page, I mean, we mentioned the art being great. It's also that the colors are pretty subdued here.
The colors
and it's
are
really working.
Really working. They've really come together in the last few issues.
And I love this panel of Spawn. It's so good. He's a little bit backlit with his wings now because he's fully the Wings of Redemption Spawn, where he's been sort of reborn with these godlike powers.
Yeah, he's sort of like hybrid, like a demon with angel wings, like everyone's AOL chat room role-playing character in the late 90s.
And they're gonna battle it out. And one thing that's interesting is she's got this giant avatar, like wolf cat thing,
her
beast.
Like I said, yeah.
That like he's like, she's like, oh, you have to forgive my pet. God created this avatar that contains my anger. He's the living personification of pure rage. And Spawn just also keeps taunting her. He's like, I know plenty about rage. You have to keep it inside. It drives you crazy. You have to learn to let it out. And then The fight scene here just kind of goes ballistic. It rules.
He fucking straight up one punch mans the creature.
Yeah,
like just
like,
leaps up and
explodes.
blasts its thorax into slime. And Spawn is just an absolute badass throughout this. As they're gearing up to fight, she's like, he's saying like, I expected to find God. Where is he? And she's like, I'll be joining him when I'm done killing you. And she's taunting him. Don't you love the scent of blood wafting on the breeze, the taste of it? And we get this killer panel, our first real glimpse of Spawn in this issue. Just him looming there in the shadows with his wings, like with
So
the
sick.
moon silhouetted behind him. And he says, the only blood I want to taste is yours. And then he absolutely demolishes her fucking kaiju creature. And she loses
out.
it. Like she's already a berserker. And here is where she enters just an uncontrollable, unbridled rage. Because, again, the monster is what keeps her rage in check in a way. It's the embodiment of it.
And with her giant sword, she and her rage at an all-time high, they both come at each other, and she cuts Spawn in half from head to toe, straight down.
It's so sick. The panel above that of Spawn holding the creature's like fucking guts and spine. All the art in this is just appropriately like super sci-fi reanimator gory in a way that is just like heightened enough to be like, it's like an EC comic. It doesn't look like reality, but it looks
so good. It's the best Philip Tan has looked this entire time. The coloring is excellent. The
getting to play to
inking,
his strengths here, really. This is, look at the speed lines, look at the posing, look at him getting cut in half, so sick. And he says, was that your best shot?
But it's got two tails
comes
from
back together.
The two tails coming
from the
from
two sides of his body,
it's so
hitting
cool.
back together.
The two
Orzakowski
tails
W.
Yeah, that one rules.
And he says, it's not what I am that should terrify you. It's what I'm becoming. Then we get this panel.
Ties himself back together.
This is an absolutely just a straight out of like a manga or anime type framing and image here of her leaping into the air with her giant sword, where she's saying, fear has no more meaning to me than starlight to a blind man. Spawn's putting his arms up, and there's just the speed lines behind her, giant sword raised over her head. It looks like a scene from Fist of the North Star or something, which I'm sure I've recommended that before, but early recommendation. If you've never watched the anime Fist of the North Star, it is fucking bonkers. The most insane fight scenes you will ever watch. Like just dudes getting their arms ripped off and then like their head smashed in with their arms, and like it's crazy. It's one of the most gonzo fighting anime that there is, and I highly recommend it. From the perfect anime era of the late 80s, early 90s.
Truly.
So this whole fight scene, Spawn is just taking her by surprise. He grabs her, takes the sword out of her hand, and crumples it like paper. And then he just starts pounding the shit out of her. He pounds her into the ground, and her body is like knitting itself back together. There's this great fucking shot, also a very anime type, like almost a Vampire Hunter D kind of look, where she's like rising up from the ground and her body's all kind of broken and contorted.
You can almost hear her like creaking back to normal,
even without the
form.
sound effects.
Yeah, there's no sound effects, but her posing is so unnatural. As after
the way her legs are bent and she's rising up.
After she's just been beaten to the ground, and you can almost hear
this is like a Chainsaw Man fight. It fucking rules. And he's saying, give it up, Zira. And she says, never. I've survived 1,000 battles. Even with every bone smashed to splinters, with every organ ruptured, I'll still come after you. 10,000 blows will not stop me. And he says, just one more. To me, this is the best David Hine's writing has been. This is just pure.
He's just in total like
badass. Like this is what you want from a gritty like hell versus heaven.
This is I've mentioned this a few times just because I love Kieran Gillen's Eternals, but like a fellow poet of annihilation. Let us trade verse. Like it is that kind of like, two heavy hitters are finally going to go at it. And comics, I think sometimes struggle with like comics are not great for like a car chase, right? I think sometimes certain artists also struggle with the fight scene because it's hard to find the perfect moments of not just impact, but also like recoil and sort of like,
Well, and you have to fit the pacing of the story with the pacing of the fight and the battle. And
well, and to
in
that point, I do think that a lot of the captioning that happens across these two issues is because when you Marvel method things and you go fight scene stuff
we only
here,
have 3 pages to do the
yeah,
final fight with Zira.
make it look
And
cool, and then I'll figure out how to get the rest of it in there, you know?
and that's why I want to give it some grace for some of those caption heavy pages, because it does, for a 2-issue ending, there are parts in here where I'm like, oh, I wish this was spread out across 2 issues,
Sure.
but not in favor of actually reaching the climax and getting somewhere that, despite the many like having to kind of speed through some big moments, feels like the catharsis you've been waiting for with Spawn. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, he says just one more, and he punches straight through her chest,
Through her.
full on
One Punch
fatality.
Man, Fist of the North Star. I mean, it is
Exactly.
a My
Sub-Zero,
Hero
Sega
Academia.
Genesis, like,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. And he says, "Can you feel it, Zira? My necroplasmic flesh crawling like worms through your guts, spreading through your body, penetrating every millimeter of tissue, every organ. There's the liver, the colon. I'm your lungs, Zira. I'm in your sterile womb." Don't love that. That's a little weird, but I guess she's an angel. There. Feel your heart, Zira. You were right. It's pumping hard. Pumping, pumping. And then the next page is the silhouette of him ripping everything out of her.
Yeah.
And the next page is her just like fully disemboweled. And she says, "What did you do?" And he says, "I eviscerated you. You're dead." And then she says, "I can't die. He won't let me. You'll never be free of me." And I just think, man, Zira, fucking killer villain. She is like the evil Angela in a way that I'm just like, she's really cool in the way that just like I get into a hero. That's another thing that's thrilling to about this whole thing for me. I have in recent years gotten into, I don't always love savage, brutal hero, anti-hero stories or whatever, but in a fantasy thing like this, it can be very, again, cathartic, like a Fist of the North Star, Berserk, something like that.
Yeah.
There is something visceral about the hero who is just like strong enough to no longer take anybody's shit.
Yeah. And it, for Al also specifically, we've spent so many pages and so many hours talking about how frustrating it is that he never fully realizes his power, or like writers have kind of kept moving the goalposts on him a little bit, where like, oh, he can't get too powerful. Oh, he did a kind of crazy thing that time, so we've got to like knock him back down to size. And there's none of that here. We're just
it feels like he's finally gotten out of the chrysalis.
Yeah, totally.
Even the thing with
wings pun, I guess.
But do you even him saying like, "Do you feel my necroplasm leaching through you like worms," or whatever?
Yeah.
Even that feels like, even just that line is enough to make me, as a reader of Spawn for closing in on 200 issues now, be like, oh, that's a cool payoff for the whole like the bugs and the necroplasm and the makeup of his body, of him being like, I can fully command all this shit now.
It's also him embracing what he is in a way that he definitely didn't for 75 issues. You know,
right
at the start, where he's like, "That's not me. I'm a human. I'm this," and then he went the other way where he's like, "I'm not a human. I'm Spawn only. Fuck Al Simmons." And now we're getting this like, no, I have ascended past existence. I've ascended past my previous existence. I've become something new. I am still the sum of the things that have made me who I am to this moment, but I am fully realized. And that's so exciting. I mean, that is like,
it is.
That is the Linkin Park song starting at the end of Transformers, you know, like it's that kind of shit.
Sure. Or to quote my favorite Transformers movie, "You got the touch, you got the power." All right. No copyright strike.
Anyway,
y-
gonna get a copyright strike now.
You know, in Boogie Nights, you've seen Boogie Nights?
Yeah, of course.
Where Mark Wahlberg as Dirk Diggler is in the recording studio after his like film career has died. Go back and watch it. He's doing that song.
Really?
Yes.
Oh. By the way, Dirk Diggler, one of the all-time great names for a character.
In a way, yeah. Also kind of sounds like a Star Wars character. He'd
It
be
does.
like one of the like Y-wing pilots.
Here's the thing. It also sounds like it does sound like if Stan Lee wrote Boogie Nights. And his name is Dirk Diggler.
Dirk Diggler, man about town. He's got away with the ladies and with a mystery.
I'm just about done with Josie Reisman's Rise and Fall of Stanley. And
yeah, it gets into some
really
shit.
sad at the end. It's just like real sad.
Yeah, Stan Lee's last years on Earth were not great for him.
Not great. It's a bummer, but it does make me appreciate him in a way, and also not like.
I think there are things about him that are appreciable. I think there are certain things he did do for the comic industry. And I think that he doesn't get credited enough for those things, which I think are primarily actually non-creative. And he gets credited way too much for the creative side of things. Like he kind of invented being a comic hype man. We
wouldn't be talking about Spawn without.
We certainly wouldn't be reading the credits at the start of every issue if Stan Lee didn't want to make sure his own name was the first thing you saw in every Marvel comic.
Yeah.
And there's, like it or not, he helped bring a level of humanity to comics from the other side.
Yeah.
And you can definitely credit even more than him for what took place in the stories. Creators like Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, so many more who embodied that human element and really codified that idea of superhuman. But Stan Lee, he got their names out there, even if they hated it sometimes.
His existence does feel a little bit like a deal with the devil.
In a way.
In a lot of ways. Based on what he thought he was going to do in life and what he ended up doing. It's a little bit of Bedazzled. Do you ever watch that movie?
Sure.
Where like every time that he makes a deal with Elizabeth Hurley, she fucks it up a little bit.
It's the monkey's paw,
Yeah,
like it's the classic, like.
And speaking of a guy who's not exactly the devil, but he's definitely here.
Memon, and he is hanging out with somebody in a dark, white cloak with red eyes and gnashing teeth, who seems to be, we'll assume, a new villain coming onto the scene at some point. And they're just kind of talking about Spawn. And, Memon is saying there was never any doubt Spawn will triumph. This has always been his destiny, the destiny I have mapped for centuries. Okay, so Memon's been instrumental in making Al Simmons the guy who's going to do all this. And I assume we'll see more of Memon later in some way.
Also, notably, in these panels, we do get a close-up of some teeth.
Yes.
And this mysterious figure says, who's got these red eyes, says, "I have no interest in a barren world, Memon. I need to feed." And feed is in kind of blood red. Dum dum dum.
And Memon says, "You'll have what you need. Mankind has always feared Armageddon as the end of all things, but it's only the beginning." Kind of similar, the vibe here is very much like Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods from Norse mythology, of course, where a chain of events happens and all the gods die, Asgard falls, but it's all reborn anew to start the cycle again with different incarnations. We've seen it in Thor comics, you know what I mean? That's the vibe here, is that death and rebirth after to quote Descartes' Kant, after destruction there'll be creation.
Very much the theme of this the end of this arc.
Yes, indeed. And so as Memon and this hooded figure are watching Spawn fly towards heaven, we switch to the battlegrounds outside of the cities of heaven, the Shining City, where none other than Thammuz is fighting a particularly fierce risen warrior. What are they called?
The Enraptured.
The Enraptured.
Right.
Yes.
We saw them get all their battle armor a couple of issues ago.
And there's only one left.
Yeah.
Who
One
is,
Granny
of course,
Blake.
Granny Blake, who has become a warrior in her own right. It says she did not choose this fate, but in all her life she had never fled from a battle, nor would she falter now. And Thammuz is kind of mocking her, what will it take to kill you? And Spawn flies down and finds her. And he is just absolutely tragically destroyed by this.
You know, I really like that despite this really going into heavy, like early or late 90s, like early 2000s kind of pencils, that Tan is still able to get the expression out of Spawn's eyes.
Oh, absolutely. The
you know,
inking doing so much good lifting here, too, letting those dark blacks kind of spread across the page to really
Yeah.
set the mood. And the colors, the blues and greens, really working thematically throughout the issue. I have to wonder, I meant to say this earlier, if oh God, what's his name?
Brian Hooperlin?
Who no.
Jay
The guy
Photos?
who's doing production, Jay Photos. If his production has something to do with, like, okay,
smoothing
let's
over some of the
beautify some of this. I don't know exactly what that entails, but
you know, there's not a ton. There's also not like a ton of computer effects that are immediately visible. So yeah, I'm curious. I wonder if he was kind of able to do a sort of pass at things to,
possible.
you know, kind of pull everything together, because this
Yeah.
does follow a little bit of the 60-30-10 rule.
Right.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Um, 60-30-10 rule is something that we'll see a lot in like Batman the Animated Series, right? So
Right.
every frame is 60% one color, 30% another color, and 10% sort of this
Right.
accent. And we see that frequently on these pages where it'll mainly be like blue, black, or blue, white, and green, and then black
Right.
is just on every page, right? So
Yes.
it really helps really pull things together. It allows your eye to be drawn to certain things in the art.
Right. It helps with the storytelling in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. And I hate to keep harping on it, but this is leagues ahead of where Lan Medina was at the end of his, or is it Angel Medina? I'm so sorry.
Angel
I always
Medina.
do that. I always do that, and it's because we know Lan. You're gonna have to edit that part out, please.
It's fine.
I hate to harp on it again, but this is so far ahead of where Angel Medina was at the end of his time on the book. Just like it's so much more cohesive. And again, talking about rules and framing and stuff, he really lets these panels breathe. Spawn shows up and he just looks absolutely devastated to see Granny Blake sitting there full of like Thammuz's blades. And Thammuz says, "What's this, hell spawn or angel or some mongrel half-breed? Wait, I know you. You're Memmon's pup." And Spawn literally just punches his head off. Doesn't say a fucking word. It's so good. And the panel is so good where you've got Spawn's energy just blasting to his face and his head falls off. He literally just punches the dude's head. Like his face
fully
off
explodes his head.
It's awesome. And Spawn in anguish yells, "Granny, can you hear me? I love his exposed teeth here."
Yeah.
And she says, "Al, you were right. God, heaven, all lies. He made us fight. That thing who claimed he was God, he gave me back my eyes so I could see this. But look at you, Al. Look at those lovely wings. At least I was right about you." And he apologizes. "I'm sorry you couldn't have your paradise." And she says to him, "It's still there, Al. I know it is, beyond all this." And this calls back to something the Mother of Miracles said issues ago. And it might even have been Kali who said it, where when she takes that infant, the spirit of the unborn infant, she says, now the child can finally enter the cycle of rebirth. And Mammon talks about freeing people from the grasp of, or not Mammon, I'm sorry, the Mother of Miracles talks about freeing people from the grasp of heaven and hell and like what lies beyond.
Well, and
the
that's because
void.
Mother of Miracles is beyond.
Yes.
Anyway,
She is the
beyond.
embodiment of
So
creation itself, kind of a Gaia, nature spirit, Mother Earth, Father Sky kind of thing, like
exactly.
an god. And so she kind of fades away as Spawn tells her rest in peace, and all that's left is a single feather drenched in blood. And down below in Los Angeles, which has kind of become the battle world of heaven and hell, detached from California by a massive earthquake a few issues ago, it's the Hellspawn, and they're all rising out of the ground, all the ages of Hellspawn, and they're coming to take on none other than Al Simmons, who it says they despise for betraying the cause.
Yeah,
And you
one
get
thing that I
this.
like is that Tan and Hine play this, and really the whole creative team. It's just played super, super, super straight. We've seen the Hellspawn before, where it's gotten like a little bit goofy, where we saw like Billy Kincaid and like the Spawn costume that didn't really fit and stuff like that.
Well, it gets
This
there's a
is
little like whimsical, yeah.
yeah, but this is just like no, big old battle. These are the
Pieces of
killers.
Spawn.
These are
Now,
the killer spawns.
this is a point where I was like, I would have loved it if this was like an issue, because it would have been so cool to see Al fight all these Spawn. That said, I don't begrudge it for ending the way it does, because it serves the story and it serves the progress of the story, where Al just arrives down there, he lands among them, and they all start to swarm him. And he goes, "This is my world. You have no place here. If your loyalty is to Satan, then go back to hell," like he's Pam Bondi or something. And and they're all yelling, "A plague on you, Simmons. This isn't the end. We'll be back," as they're sucked back into the ground just as
Pretty cool.
easily as they crawled back out. Like, he's just like, no.
It is
Not
the
today.
Indiana Jones shooting the guy with the sword of comic book fight scenes, because he's just like, we're not doing this. I'm not doing this. We're moving
Yes.
on.
Meanwhile, the island itself of Los Angeles is being plagued by rising dead who are becoming the beasts of heaven and hell that we saw before, who were kind of like turned into these weird troglodyte creatures by the beast of war, the horseman of war. And Satan, in the form of little Katie, shows up and says, "Something's missing. Where are my Hellspawn?" There is something that is becoming increasingly intentionally and effectively creepy about the little kid just floating in the air there.
It
Like, it's
rules.
starting to be like, oh,
I
okay, this actually is a terrifying version of a villain.
I don't love it, but all right, excuse me. I didn't love it at first, but I'm coming around to it. And it does pay off ultimately, I'd say. And
There is a reveal coming, listeners, where we see the true form of God and Satan in the Spawn universe, and I showed it to my roommates, and they were just as impressed as I was. It's sensational. We'll discuss it. So
Katie Satan is like, "Where are my Hellspawn?" And
Katie
a demon
Satan.
And a demon is like, "Oh, the Hellspawn are gone. Earth swallowed them up. They're back in hell." Katie's like, "What the fuck?" And
You're telling me those pathetic ass-kicking Baptists have beaten my elite?
yeah,
And then the demon explains,
he's like, "Oh, it wasn't the Enraptured that beat them. It was Hellspawn. He winged Hellspawn. He just claimed sovereignty over the Earth." And he's like, "I saw it with my own eyes." And she goes, "Your own eyes," and just rips them out. And that's fun.
This bit here where Katie Satan is going, "Gone, you're telling me those pathetic ass kicking Baptists have beaten my elites?" That is how the fucking conservatives think Satan is in hell reacting when they pepper spray Antifa. Like, these Baptists have beaten my elite soldiers. She rips out his eyes. She says, "Your eyes? Well, I don't like your eyes." And God shows up and he's like, "I'm bored. This battle is too equal. Where the hell is Zira?" And Spawn shows up and he says, "Missing your favorite warrior?" She's right
What is Zira's
here.
podcast? Is Zira like a Joe Rogan type podcast? No, it's an Alex Jones podcast type podcast, right?
I see her as one of those like lifestyle influencer podcasts where she's talking about the fucking grind set. I fought 1,000 battles, my organs destroyed. Every time I get up, 1,000 blows will not take me down. Like that definitely sounds like she's also getting off the fucking microphone and messaging you like, "Hey, hun, have you heard about crystal powder? You rub it on your body and it makes you strong in the eyes of God."
I imagine that. So types of podcasts that Spawn characters have. That's one for Zira. Clown obviously has a Kill Tony type podcast.
Yeah, like a yuckity yuck. I'm bringing on. I only had Donald Trump on because I thought he was funny.
Yeah, exactly. And Sam tried out, like he thought maybe he'd be a comedian for a little while, and Twitch was like, "Sir, I don't think that's a very good idea."
I think they tried a podcast together, and Twitch, much like Pierce, was just no selling Sam's jokes. That does make Pierce the Twitch of this relationship, and I actually think that's, if you see us, that's accurate.
It's probably pretty accurate. Well, I think that's one of the things we've said this to the regarding Spawn Boys, is that I think every Spawn podcast has to have a Sam and a Twitch, yeah. And so
didn't they did cosplay as Sam and
Twitch, right? Yeah, they did. So they actually did it. So
great. Love those guys. Haven't talked to them in a while. Hopefully,
we got to have them back on. Regarding Spawn Boys, hit us up. We want to talk to you again about what we don't know yet. We'll see. Something
I wanted to call back to you that I forgot to mention in the double page spread, kick ass double page spread of Spawn sending the other Hell Spawn back to hell. You can really see the difference now between Spawn and the other, Hell Spawn, between Al and the other Hell Spawn. Yeah. You can see that a lot of them have that like craggy carapace like, outer kind of shell with their symbiote, and Spawn is now like
a
his
superhero.
Skin is smooth, and he looks a little more like Venom now.
Yeah,
with wings.
I also like that his wings are completely in black. There's no shading to them. There's no depth to them. We get it,
right?
But it gives such great balance to the page.
So much power, and
it rules.
Philip Tan, really a good choice here. Honestly, this happens with many of the artists and creators that we've gone through these Spawn stories with. As he's getting more and more into Spawn, this is my favorite work I've seen him do. And
he also really gets to define this version of Spawn.
He does,
and he's to live with him for a much longer amount of time.
Again, playing to his strengths. And one thing that I think those heavy black inks is helping is he doesn't have to put quite as much detail into every single thing. Yeah. He can focus on the details that matter and on the storytelling and the framing and the pacing. His panels are so much better to me and so much more energetic than a lot of Angel Medina's, where Medina would pack in all this just like kinetic movement. It would just become a jumble of like limbs and wings and spikes and chains. Tan has that kind of energy.
I'll say this is a really pared down Spawn design.
Yes.
And here's the reality of it. And I hate to go back to the King every single time, but Capullo really loved playing with the cape and the chains and the spikes and the boot and the this and the that and the accoutrements of Spawn. And not every artist has been able to do all that stuff justice. And it's clear that Tan was struggling with it a little bit, especially as he had to deal with like kid Spawn at the same time. And like
he had to draw like 11 Spawns at some point.
Yeah, it's tough. And like kind of just like, all right, this is what this like small child zombie Spawn looks like. And he's the cape
you have
mostly,
to set Al apart from all of them. And I think the wings, it's actually winds up being such a cool, ominous look for Spawn. Case in point, he's bringing Zira's head back to Jakey God, and she's just talking. She says, "I beg your pardon, my lord. He's grown stronger. He took me by surprise." It's just such a great moment. Her living head, again, very Reanimator.
Yeah.
And Spawn's just like, this planet is under my protection now. You will release the resurrected armors from your control, and then you'll leave Earth forever. And the Trinity shows up. And
Well,
they're like,
yeah.
we have a suggestion. And they leave. Who should show up, or where should they show up but alongside Satan? And Spawn can see God and Satan just floating in the air in the distance talking. That's a great panel. That they really capture a weird, austere kind of dark essence of Armageddon, where it's just rubble and these like otherworldly sort of extra human figures just like floating around observing in a kind of detached alien way. It really works. And so we catch up with God and Spawn, and they say, get him, kill the traitor, kill Spawn. And they're working together, and they sick all of their heavenly and hellish creatures against him.
Too bad he looks way too cool to be defeated that easily.
Yes, if looks could kill, it would be this panel.
If I could get like a Magic the Gathering playmat of this panel,
oh, it's sick.
It's so awesome.
I would put that on my fucking wall. That's a desktop. It's Spawn with his wings just like spread out, floating in the air. And here's where not having the chains and stuff actually really works, because it just sets him apart from every creature there. He really does look like a very cool and interesting fusion of the warriors of heaven and hell. And it says, then every creature rose against him. And it's just like these hordes of like, again, demons and angels and the stuff in between launching at him. This panel is so cool.
Then we get our Akira panel.
We fucking do. I was
truly get
jazzed.
an Otomo. Yeah, we get a true Otomo kind of end of the world. And I love this. I actually really love this narration too. You know, so then every creature rose against him. With a heavy heart, Spawn summoned the power bestowed upon him by the mother of creation. For there can be no creation without destruction. This double page spread is so cool. We get the Mother of Miracles, Mother of Creation kind of behind Spawn, really sick blue panel, kind of almost imbuing him with the power of destruction and creation, it seems. And he
which she bestowed on him in earlier issues. She
but
was
it's,
like,
I guess, like a reminder.
Break my rules, basically.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a reminder. And I will say, I love that they've kind of set out like, okay, her energy is blue. The hellish, sickly green slime energy is, the power of the Hellspawn. And then there's that sort of more like radiant green energy that is the green world, the blue energy of the Mother of Creation. These panels are so killer.
Well, and a big thing here is it's colors on pencils. It's not.
Yes.
It's not colors on inks.
Well, I don't know about that.
It's some inks.
I think it's a combination. It is a combination.
It's lightly inked.
It's very effective because Spawn just spreads out his wings and opens his arms wide. This blue energy pours out of him, and everything attacking him is just absolutely disintegrated in this wave of energy. And then at the bottom, we get this double page spread panel of the Akira dome explosion, which, God, now I just want to sit and watch Akira, one of my all-time favorites. Here's a panel. Here's a case of a double page spread where the panel in the bottom is centered, where it actually makes sense and works, because you're missing literally nothing but the void of space in the middle of the bubble, and you want that central like ripple.
And actually all the other panels are really perfectly off center, so that you lose nothing. It's great.
Well, yeah, and it's very filmic in that widescreen comics sort of way. And we get to the last page of Spawn number 162, where Spawn is just crushed on the ground, his wings kind of smoldering with this blue energy. And it says, when he looked about him and saw what he had done, Spawn wept, for all the world was desolation, and mankind was no more. And with that, Pierce, it's time to hit me with those credits for Spawn 163.
Alrighty, Spawn 163, which the cover of Spawn 163, you can tell that Capullo was just getting told, like, I don't know, man, just draw like a bunch of Spawn pinups. And he was like, this is what I'm going to do. And they were like, that's fine. because the cover of 163 is fully old Spawn, but with Greg Capullo learning to digitally paint, as he has been over the course of these like bunch of issues, which is cool because it looks like Joe Jusko type
Yeah, it's pretty
trading
cool. The
cards. It's
colors are
cool.
nice. I
It's
like
really
it.
cool.
It doesn't reflect a lot of what Spawn looks like now, but that's
No.
fine. He's got the arm spikes coming out of the symbiote, kind of like Philip Tan's Spawn. You
Yeah.
know, it's a great Greg Capullo version of that sort of character.
Totally.
It actually looks kind of like Spawn looked earlier in this run before he turned his cape into like bats to destroy whoever it was. I
Yeah.
can't even remember who he did that to now. Doesn't matter. All right. Spawn number
Anyway.
163.
Todd McFarlane Image Comics present Spawn 163, Armageddon Part 10, the final part of Armageddon. All of the credits are the same, except Ian Hannon is not on colors, and we have an additional penciler, Rodell Nora. But everything else is the same. This one is dedicated to Hugo Pratt. You know who Hugo Pratt is?
Not a fan.
He's an Italian comic book writer.
Okay.
Corto Maltese. He did like a bunch of the Corto
I
Maltese.
knew I knew the name.
Yeah.
I do know Corto Maltese.
He's in the Will Eisner Hall of Fame, you know.
Yeah. So I will say the art in this issue is a little more inconsistent, and it really to me comes down to the colors. They're not quite as thematic. There are a lot more spaces where it's like kind of rendered in a more literal way than the last issue, which was very like the last issue felt so auteur and like really beautifully crafted, and this one has really great moments, but there are also moments where it kind of just looks like any comic, whereas the last one felt
there are definitely times where it feels
there was a weight to 162.
I think it's partly that the last issue has a lot of really impactful moments in general, and so with the colors pulling back a little bit to really adhere a little bit closer to that 60-30-10 rule, as opposed to getting a little bit bogged down in like, well, we use computers now, we can just show every color. The great, not so much some gradients and some things that like I think
well, like this opening page of 163 looks great to me.
Yeah, I think so. However, I would argue that you don't need the yellow, because like that was the first thing to me where I was like, oh, I think we're already in a world where we're adding colors that we don't need. It could be still more blue.
I don't
I'm
know.
not saying
I
that
like it. I like it as an offset because it kind of moves down to the bottom corner of the page, and it's a little eerie. So what's happening here in this first page as we open is we're getting a recap. And when I opened these first couple pages, I was like, holy fucking captions, Batman.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It is a lot of text. So what we're seeing is the four horsemen moving through Los Angeles, which again has become kind of the battle world. Spawn just wiped out every living thing on Earth, and now God and the devil are resurrecting or reviving them in a way, not as human beings or even corpses, but as actual sort of like demons and angels and creatures of the realms. And they march off across the world trying to find something to eat or fight or destroy.
It is an act of desperation by these two like powers after Spawn has like pretty handily defeated everything.
And we see the wave of energy that Spawn creates passing over all of them and destroying them, kind of getting a little recap catch up of what happened through all of this. And believe me, when I say we're glazing over like text, it's like 12 bubbles on a page, like just these very difficult to read kind of like scrolly captions, unfortunately.
And they are really just recapping like, who are Jakey and Katie? Oh, they're God and Satan. Who is this guy with the wings? Oh, that is Spawn. He's got the power of a god. He's a man, you know, whatever.
Blah,
like
blah, 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 blah.
It's
everything we already know.
Yeah,
that we just went through essentially.
There's one panel that I absolutely love or two panels I absolutely love in the opening couple of pages. One, the very first panel, fucking incredible.
Oh,
I
with
hear
the
you.
horsemen.
When you said like, I like these two issues, but I wish like we could have delved into a couple things. I want to see Spawn fight the Horseman.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I want to see
You
Spawn
know,
fight the Horseman like that issue of Thor that's all splash pages where he fights the
yeah,
World
that'd be
Serpent.
cool.
Like that kind of like, how do we do? Because also doing an issue that's all splash pages does feel very Spawn in a way. And
So
then the other one is this guy, the sort of resurrected guy swimming.
yeah,
I love
pretty
that panel.
cool.
It feels like a Kirby panel.
Yeah,
Feels like a
it looks
Kazar or
very
something.
well, it looks very Etrigan, like the design
Well,
of it
yeah.
even.
I just meant like the pose with that hand kind of outstretched. I
Oh
don't know.
yeah, it's almost a Joe Kubert looking kind of
Yeah.
creature.
Yeah.
But so
Anyway.
God and the devil are now pissed. God and the devil are raging outside of Al Simmons. Fuck those guys. God, the devil, brand new, whoever. And Spawn is just kind of, he seems to be weeping on the ground as God and the devil are like reeling from the fact that Spawn just destroyed everything, took away all their toys, their entire playground, everything. And they're like, look at that treacherous bastard weeping like a baby. And Jakey God says, I'll give him something to cry about. But he's not crying, he's laughing. And they say, you destroyed the human race. This is how you save them? And he says, no, they were already dead. I set them free from being your minions, being stuck in these hellish forms. And he says, you planned this for thousands of years. I'm laughing because you created the human race, bred us to be cannon fodder for your apocalypse. What was the plan? 1,000 years of war? I took it all away from you. That's what's funny. It's all a big joke, and I just delivered the punchline, which a better version of that than the Joker's ever done. To be totally honest, this is not Joker cringe.
Here's a little bit of what I hear you saying about the art being a bit inconsistent. There's just some panels here where you're like, after especially reading these issues back to back, I'm like, oh, it doesn't quite look as cohesive as it did the last time around, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the Mother of Miracles shows up and they're like, you bitch, you can't do this. He's a man. I made mankind, not you. He's mine. And the Mother of Miracles says, I'll do it. I will. And he says, there's something you can do. They look too much like Wanda in these bodies. They're an insult to the human race. Let's see what these scumbags really look like. And guess what? They're a couple of nearly identical fucking himbos. The only difference is they both look like Superman, mullet Superman, except that the devil has big horns and like red eyes. And
they look like WWE superstars from like 1997 that I would forget the name of.
So we get this cool thing where Spawn is just kind of
the
laying
Hardly
around.
Boys.
Yeah. Spawn is just kind of laying around. And God is saying, you wanted to take on God and the devil, now's your chance. And Spawn's just kind of relaxing in this pit. And he's like, so that we can beat the crap out of each other for all eternity? I don't think so. I've already won. And he just starts to walk away. And he's like, what? Do your fucking worst. I don't care anymore.
He's not relaxing here. He did just get blasted.
Well, that's fair, but like if you see the way he's sitting, he's kind of like laying back, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
I guess so.
Yeah, it was God sort of blasting him, that's fair.
Yeah.
That actually, the storytelling there is a little inconsistent, I will say.
It's not where
it's
it
hard
was
to know whose hand that is.
Yeah, it's not where it was the last issue, for sure.
But it's still good. It's fine. Spawn starts knitting himself up and he gets up and he just walks away. But like if you look at the way he's drawn, he's kind of lounging there, like he's not like reeling in pain. He's kind of just like laying there.
Yeah, that's true.
And so he says, do your worst. And the devil and God blast him. God blasts him with this like bluish energy. The devil blasts him with hellfire. And Sponge goes, it's finished, and seemingly disintegrates. Here's where the colors to me are a little more literal than I wish.
Yeah.
And you have to set apart the energies and all that stuff. And that's really how they're defined. But I think the colors around them could have been a little more interesting.
The other thing is, I think that the whole art team are cowards
Because they
because
didn't give these guys dicks and balls.
yeah,
Well,
these guys got to be hanging dong.
if only life were fair, but God didn't give those to them.
I get well. You
Mother
know
of
what?
Miracles left them bereft, and you know what? That's fine.
Maybe God and Satan canonically trans men.
Me, I don't know. I don't love that.
No. They're just genderless beings.
Yeah, no, I don't know. So anyway, they're left on this husk, this burning husk of a world, God and the devil, in their like himbo dickless forms, and
they start fighting because that's what they do. That's like their whole deal.
And the Mother of Miracles is like, you could have been the greatest of my children. What poison polluted your souls to make you so corrupt? And you get the idea that she has a lot of divine children that are all these different. It kind of ties everything together in a subtle way where you're like, okay, the reason they're so important is because they keep forcing themselves on everything.
Yeah.
It's not that they're inherently in charge of reality.
The other thing that's like a little bit funny about this is we've joked a lot about there being like an illustrated Bible, and this is about as close to like the illustrated Bible as you'll get.
That's true.
From last issue's Spawn wept just being the Jesus wept, like to
Jesus wept. Stop saying Jesus wept.
But like this is straight up just the devil and God fighting, and that's hilarious.
Well, and they have their little slap fight, and then it says, for a brief moment, their minds were clear, and they saw the folly of their ancient feud. And they're like, perhaps we should this. And then they're like, this is your fault. And they start arguing again. And, you know, God is saying, you know, I gave them free will, or you gave them, saying to Satan, you gave them free will, you moron. You think this would have happened if you never did that? And he's saying, you know, without me, there wouldn't have been a hell spawn. And the guy, the God is saying, exactly, no hell spawn, moron. And Satan says, to hell with you. I don't need an army to whip your ass. And they have this huge fight where they're just throwing fucking rocks at each other. And, you know, it's just talking about how they could have done wonders together. Instead, they were blind to everything but their hatred for one another. And it kind of talks about, there's a point where it says like no one really knows what caused their everlasting feud. It's a little mucky,
okay,
because we know actually how canonically in comics and in like apocryphal religious texts that Lucifer, the bringer of light, one of God's favorite angels, decided it's better to reign in hell than to serve in heaven, and became, you know, Satan, Lucifer. This is kind of adding a Spawn element to it where it's like, oh, they started fighting kind of before all that. That's just kind of that's what happened as a result of their feud, but no one knows.
Also, the implication here is that Mother of Miracles made Satan as is. So the Lucifer thing doesn't really fit in the same way. It doesn't really matter. It does not really matter. It doesn't matter.
It's also one of those things where like perhaps there is no ultimate like hard to find truth in the creation of like cosmic entities and their whims that go beyond human understanding. So we'll give it the no prize pass for that.
Yeah. What's funny is that as this is happening, we kind of zoom out in a Coen Brothers-y way, and we get to see Mother of Miracles and Spawn just kind of like watching from space. And Mother Miracle goes, so it goes. Spawn's like, will they ever stop? Who knows? Neither can defeat the other. They're all powerful and immortal. There can be no victory. I allow all my
on this dead earth now.
Yeah, just like they're just gonna fight forever. I allow all my children to make their own destiny. I have given them all the guidance I can, but I fear they are beyond hope. Like the worm that eats its own tail, they are trapped in a cycle of endless self-destruction. I kind of love this panel too, because Mother Miracles using their power to show kind of an Ouroboros, which is cool. Which is just like a cool touch, you know.
Cool. It's cool stuff. So we get this moment where Spawn is asking the Mother of Miracles, did I kill Wanda? Did I kill Terry and Cyan? And she says, it's as I told you, I withdrew my protection from them. They're all dead. But she
Yep.
explains to him, you can bring everything back.
Right.
She says, everything that dies will be reborn. And she says, you must close your eyes to this dead world, banish it from your mind, and open yourself to me. And he becomes the Mother of Miracles conduit. Now, here's where the colors are really working for me again. I love
Yeah.
this page of Spawn channeling the power of creation, where instead of expelling all that energy, he's almost drawing it back into himself.
And holding the earth in the palm of his hand. He has
Yes.
become, I like to imagine that he's become so large within the cosmos that he can now grasp at the earth almost, you know?
And so, exactly, he's got that kind of like Christ Son Infinite Earth, the Spectre kind of like
Yeah.
perspective. And so, the Spawn, there was an era of Spawn where he was very much like the Spectre.
Mm.
Pretty cool. I think we
Yeah,
talked
totally.
about it at the time too. The next page, cutting from that like dark void of space with that writhing blue energy to like this golden kind of, it's gold, but it's not necessarily hopeful. It's almost a reticent
Yeah.
sort of sunlight. I don't know how else to explain it. It comes with this haze because though everyone has been resurrected and everything's been set right and the world has been reborn, everyone remembers Armageddon. They're cursed, they're burdened with this knowledge of this is what happened when we let these forces, when we give up our will to these forces around us. And this, it says, this is the beginning of hope. We see that Granny is back along with Terry, Wanda, and Cyan, and she is saying to them, Wanda says, was it all a dream? Please tell me I've been dreaming. And Cyan says, no, Mommy, it happened. The sad man saved us, didn't he, Granny? And Granny says, yes, honey, it was Al, saved us all. And what a great moment for Granny in a way, because through all of everything, Al is the one who really did show up and give her that moment of hope, which I think is like a great capstone to their relationship. That he, of all, that's what it is. Of all the people telling him what he is and what he's supposed to be and what his true nature is,
She
only
told him
Granny
his
is
truth.
the one who tells him, you are good.
Yeah.
And you
she
can be
tells him
good.
his truth.
Yes, exactly. And I think there's something beautiful to that. And I think there's something beautiful in her, even with being, again, cursed with this knowledge that everything was terrible and that the universe died in a way that destroyed the faith of everyone. She still found a way to keep it. And I think it's beautiful that she gets to remember that it was Al that saved everyone.
Yeah.
And that
Also,
it was because he embodied that power with responsibility in some way.
Yeah, also really great panel when she says it was Al that saved us all. In her glasses, we get the reflection of Wanda in one lens, but we get Spawn in the other.
Yes.
And it's just a really nice, subtle touch that I don't even think I noticed the first time I read through. But
So,
it
yes.
does leave things in this like interesting place because it has brought this tension back to this family. Terry has had a tension with Al. Wanda has never forgotten him, but she's tried to move on. Granny has been there for him.
And
Cyan
has
has a
forged
connection.
a bond with him.
Right. And that is deeper than her parents understand and than even Granny Blake understands. But as a reader, it is a huge payoff for us because we keep being told that there will be a child, right? That we need to be paying attention to her. We've seen that start to play out here. We wonder what it means now.
And we saw some of it, how she helped Spawn through his fight with the disciples. But here he's kind of wrapping up with the Mother of Miracles. And he's saying, where are the terrible twins? And she says, as near and far away as a moment passed. And he says, is it wrong to get one, or too much to ask for one straight answer? The Mother of Miracles explains that they're locked away on this dead earth until such time as they are able to somehow overcome their blind hatred for each other. And she tells Spawn, heaven and hell still exist, but if you want to close them off from Earth, you can. And he is immediately like, yes, I'm doing that. Door closed right now. You wish the Democrats were this decisive. And you know, she says to Spawn, "What will you do now?" And he kind of says the last thing this world needs is another god. He rejects the wings, he rejects the power. He says, "I don't want to be this world's creator or protector or guardian." You know, he says,
I came back for one reason. I came back for Wanda. That's why I made this deal with Malbolgia. That's why I became Hellspawn.
and she says,
And
you know, well, the Mother of Miracles says to him, "You won't change anything." And he says, "Like what? World peace, end global warming, cure the common cold. Where would it end? If there's one thing I know is that the more you try to control things, the more chaos you create. No, it's time for mankind to grow up. They can find their own way." And while that seems a little dispassionate, I actually think that's the key message here. And I like that message because we really do have to stop counting on these existential
mhm.
like forces to come along and cure everything. Like God's not going to be like, you get to keep Earth for another 3,000 years or whatever it's going to be. You know what I mean? Al Simmons is not going to show up and cure global warming and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, and
It's also
so
a bridge too far for a character like him to carry that cross, right? Like he can't do it. He doesn't see
there's
himself
nowhere to
that way.
go for the character, and you can't even bring in a new Spawn that way.
Right.
You know what I mean? It is an end game. And instead, he says, "Look, I just want to be human again. I just want to be Al Simmons." And he says, "All I ever wanted was to have my life back. So you can take all this away. I just want to be Al Simmons." And the Mother of Miracles says, she says, "You've been gone a long time. Wanda has moved on. She has a new family." And Spawn just says, "I'm the one Wanda loves. She never stopped. Terry filled the gap, but she never stopped loving me. It will hurt Terry. I know that, and I'm sorry for him. But whatever he feels will never be 1,000th of what I've been through. Cyan already thinks of me like a father. This will work. I deserve it, don't I?" And the Mother of Miracles very succinctly calls Al on this one piece of bullshit that he has held on to the entire time and says to him, he says, "I deserve it, don't I?" And she says, "Do you?"
I really like how this scene plays out because she ultimately does grant his wish,
She does.
essentially, and it is a wish, you know.
Oh, yes. And we see
And
that he's fully purged of the Hellspawn.
as much as we can understand it to be purged, yeah. And
Right.
I like leaving it. I like leaving that open ended. I think it's actually really, really effective storytelling here because it means that the door is not closed.
Right. Well, and
And
nothing ever is in comics. You know what I mean?
of
Even if they
course,
tried to put a nail in it, he'd still pry his way out of the coffin at some point, somehow. But yeah, he says, he's kind of weeping, and he says, "Those wings were never going to look right on me." And he says, "You guess you can go now. It's a big universe. I'm sure you have other things to do." And she says, "Spawn, you should know." And he says, "There is no more Spawn. I'm Al Simmons, and I'm going home." And we don't find out what she was going to tell him. We just see him walking off. We see a falling star that we take to be the Mother of Miracles kind of returning to the cosmos. And we see Wanda's face looming over Al as he walks towards their house. And we'll
yeah.
follow up on that in the next issue and in the next episode of Spawnography.
Yeah. I actually even really like that it says next issue, Spawn 164 in a question mark.
Right.
Because it's very much like, well,
What the
now
fuck
what?
happens
You
next?
know?
Yeah.
And that's really cool. It's a really exciting place to leave the book. It's
It's a
kind
more
of
interesting way to get there than with Spawn, I think. Or than with some of the earlier experiences with Spawn where he is, you know what I'm saying?
yeah. It's moved the stake. It moved the stakes forward in a very different way because it's not like the other times we've seen him become Al, he was amnesiac or his face was gonna
Yes,
like
that's what I was going to say.
disintegrate. Like
Yes,
this is just
he is it feels like a more fulsome kind of return to humanity than we've seen in previous
exactly.
versions of this, because he's also done the thing that has been his destiny this whole time and saved the earth in his own kind of difficult way.
He's now truly the soldier returning home, and he's gonna find out, and we're gonna find out if he will reap any sort of reward for that. And
Yeah.
based on what we know about superhero characters,
We'll find out.
probably not.
Al Simmons hasn't had a great time of it.
Yeah. He didn't have a great time of it in life, except when he was world's sexiest man alive.
That's true.
1987. But at the same time, I guess he was probably committing war crimes. So for Ronald Reagan. So when you put it into that context, maybe not the best, but we kind of got into final thoughts at the beginning to bring some context here, but final thoughts, George.
I think the running through line through this has been that they have to wrap this up. And there are elements of it where, again, it's like, okay, we're getting what could be this big Spawn versus all the Spawns fight, but it's a different kind of moment. And they're focusing more on those bigger pictures. I've said this before, it's very arch in the way that it's plotted, in the sense that it's like, okay, we're getting to the battle of heaven and hell. And I'm left with questions. Where's Cog? What ended up with that storyline? You know what I mean? And again, there's room for him to return, but it kind of, there was never a moment of like the Tower of Hell collapsing and Satan, kind of throwing him to the ground or whatever. Did we need that page or those panels? I don't know. I don't feel unsatisfied. I do feel like also that's perhaps hopefully something for the next writers and creators to take up.
Yeah, I think the reality of all of these, all superhero comics, especially long running ones, is like you have to leave some threads that are just never really going to get resolved, and you can let somebody else figure out exactly what they want to do with them. I'm curious about what's up with Cog. I'm still curious about what's up with Memon. I'm curious about where Clown's at through all this. What the Fleabag brothers are doing. There are still so many. What's the Green World's reaction to everything that's gone on? We haven't really gotten
Billy Kincaid really gone.
Like, yeah, I mean, like, we know that Mother of Miracles was the keeper, right? So is she just the Green World? Is that what that means?
Right. I think that it's a connection of like that is her earthly aspect of like the aspect of her that exists as like the beings of nature. I don't know. Honestly, the other thing about it is I'm willing to know prize, as I've said, a lot of that stuff because it is a compelling and interesting read, and a lot of it looks fucking great.
Well, also too, I'm willing to just have another writer figure that out.
Yeah,
right.
It's like, okay, it feels like there was a tradition for a long time for Daredevil writers where you'd leave Matt Murdock in the worst place possible, and the next writer would have to somehow dig him out. Yeah. And like, it's kind of that in a way where, okay, we've done the Armageddon thing. That's not what Spawn is doing next, and it's not even going to be Al Simmons theoretically doing it. We'll find out who's going to be doing it. We already know, but in the story, we'll find out.
Yeah, exactly. So, I'm excited to keep moving forward. Obviously, we're going to be with Al for a little bit longer, but his days are numbered in terms of how much we're covering him in the show. And but David Hine's run continues. Does feel like he did a lot of heavy lifting here in terms of like getting us through some of this stuff because it had to get resolved.
Yes, he certainly was like a wilderness guide through a lot of it in a way.
Truly some yeoman's work here, but I'm excited to see him get to put a little bit more of his stamp on things as we move forward.
I kind of feel like I wonder a little bit if there was an element of bringing in David Hine that was like, okay, well, Brian and Todd are kind of really trying to do everything, and they're doing so many stories and so many. It almost feels like they had to bring in David Hine to just be like, hey, okay, can you just wrap this up?
Yeah.
Can you just take the bird's eye view and take the important things? Because I don't want to say they were lost in the weeds, but I think there's a good chance this could have gone on another 30 or 40 issues if it was just, Brian Holguin doing all these arcs where it's like Spawn versus the Hellspawn, so on and so forth, things that are seen. Yeah. I'm not saying Brian Holguin couldn't have wrapped this up, but I'm wondering if maybe there's an element of that.
I wonder, and again, it's hard to get like sales figures, but I wonder if there was an audience and hey, Spawn fans, let us know if you were reading at the time, if there's we do know that we're getting into sort of lower print run era of Spawn. It is like tougher to collect these issues because they're much more expensive because there's less of them. Spawn is not at the same heights that it was when it first came out, even the first few years that it was coming out. I wonder if there was a sense of Todd feeling like we have to do something different because this isn't working. This guy's had as much time as I had before I brought him on, and he didn't get us anywhere.
I don't want to give it that much like of
no.
a.
I mean, I'll be curious to talk to Todd about it in terms of like what the impetus was behind certain things changing.
Well, I don't think it was this guy didn't get us anywhere, but I think it may be that like we need to bring in someone who can take all this and sum it up in a way that like maybe who can bring together the forest through the trees, not necessarily see the forest for the trees, but you know what I'm saying.
The reality is we've invoked Mr. Claremont more than a few times on this podcast, but the reality is that not many writers have been able to spin a yarn for quite as long. The reality is that Chris had the benefit of a huge cast of characters that allowed him to sort of swap perspectives and kind of change things up and create new stakes because certain characters knew each other or didn't know each other or could always meet each other or could be on the other side of the world or whatever, right? I do think that sometimes there were basically like there are limitations to writing a singular superhero, especially one that, as we've talked about, has an okay but growing sort of rogues gallery. I would say that we haven't had a ton of icons come out of the first 150 issues.
There are a few, and then there's a lot of popular deep cuts.
Yeah. And so like, I do think that if you don't eventually get to what we got to here, which is the big battle between heaven and hell on some level, it becomes a little bit of diminishing returns as a reader to be like,
right,
oh, we're still just kind of in the same status quo and we do need something to shake it up. And I think that there was maybe a feeling that killing Malbolgia was gonna be a step towards that, but we walk back that self-assured Spawn pretty quickly after 100, right, or whatever the issue is. Where
that happens so many times.
Right. Which is, again, this is unfortunately, it's a feature, not a bug of superhero comics. Is that like you move, one step forward, 3.5 steps back every single time. But I wonder if there was some editorial impetus to be like, we got to put this thing on rails a little bit so that people have an understanding of what they can expect.
I think, well, maybe that's what I think happened is they were like, okay, it's just time to do this. And we need someone who can pull the train into the station. It's something, okay, somewhat unrelated, but it just occurred to me throughout all this, especially thinking about that fight between Spawn and the other Spawns and what it could have been. In a way, Spawn almost beat Spider-Verse to the punch with the like infinite versions of a guy who can all exist and not even all be guys or whatever, because anybody can be under the mask. It doesn't have to be Al Simmons as Spawn. I think that's one of the big lessons of Spawn is that Al Simmons is thrust into this position because of who he is as a person, much like Peter Parker was as Spider-Man, but anybody could be under that mask. And there's something, especially the story of Al Simmons, feels like the horror flip side to the story of Spider-Man. And not just because of the Todd McFarlane of it all, but because the story of Spider-Man is him learning that his responsibility is as much a blessing as his powers, where Spawn has kind of been the other side of that. He has so much responsibility piled on him that he can barely even understand who he is. And it's almost like the horror version of a wish fulfillment kind of story.
The thing,
and then that way we can put ourselves in Spawn's shoes from a point of pathos.
I think the thing that's interesting is that Spawn has a responsibility that he innately rejects, right?
Right.
If we go with first 12 issues of Spawn, Malbolgia's like, here's your job, right? He innately rejects it because He only made the deal for the wish fulfillment part, and the chickens are never going to come home to roost.
Right.
Sort of.
And we still won't know.
Whereas Spider-Man had great responsibility the entire time. Right? Peter Parker has to take care of Aunt May. Peter Parker feels like, or at least he feels like he has to take care
When
of
he
Aunt
has
May.
the inciting incident where he loses Uncle Ben because of his own selfishness.
Right. Well, and that's just sort of that's the most like kind of outward expression of the idea, right? I think that they, I like what you said about this kind of beating Spider-Verse to the punch unknowingly, because I do like, we've said a million times, we love the idea of like there being a bunch of different spawns, and we're gonna see.
Oh, it's so much fun. It's built into the character concept.
Yeah, and we're gonna see this get leaned into more throughout these issues. We're within the next, couple months, we're gonna meet Gunslinger Spawn for the first time for real. I know we've got a cameo before, but we're really gonna get into that guy's story, and I think that's, and we've already seen this in the modern era with Scorched and with some of the other kind of spin-off titles, or even Rat City, that like Todd and his team eventually identified exactly what you said. Anybody can be under the mask, so let's give people a variety. And I think that is kind of one of the genius things about Spider-Man, is that you can meet Spider-Man fans whose favorite Spider-Man isn't Peter Parker. And I think the hope is that you would meet Spawn fans that are not Al Simmons fans. The difference is that I think Al's story is such a monolith within. I think that this mythos has not been very good at expanding itself because it doesn't have a larger universe to rely on.
Right.
Peter Parker being a character in the Marvel universe gives you a lot more leeway to tell certain kinds of stories, and also allow him to grow as a character because he doesn't have to be the main focus of every single story. He can just be one of the people in Civil War. He can be one of the people in Secret Wars, whatever, and you can learn things about him and about how he reacts to things, and but he doesn't have to be the focus of it. Whereas Spawn, unfortunately, doesn't have the benefit of a larger universe that he's used very, very sparingly in some places and a lot in other places.
Well, and by now he's the kind of center of a whole universe of Spawn spin-offs and stuff that kind of slowly have grown through the ages. And
the dark ages.
That's right. I think that you're right that they were kind of like, okay, it's time to see what else we can do with this. This is how these stories will live on more, and how we'll even get back to people wanting Al Simmons again.
Yeah, exactly. Take it away maybe for a little while so that people will be like, you know what? I like that original guy the best.
That's what I was going to say. Thank you for saying that. It's a lot like, in a way, Spawn almost has his own Secret Wars here, where it's like him versus everything for the fate of reality, and reality doesn't exactly make it. It has to be reborn, maybe with some differences, maybe with some sames, but we're going to find out where it goes from here. And honestly, I am at a point where I'm excited to see what happens next.
Yeah, for sure. I think that ending this one big struggle now opens the book up to like, well, now the book can kind of be anything. Now reality can be whatever you want, Spawn.
And he's just like, I just want it to be fucking normal, please. Which is so relatable. That is so relatable to how I feel every day. Is like, I just want it to be normal, please. I would just like to get my normal groceries, please.
To kind of bring it back to what we were talking about at the very top about everyday life, right? Is that like, I kind of get Al Simmons. I kind of get him being like, I need to not be beset upon by entities of
I don't
evil.
need the universe itself coming to me anymore to be like, Al, you have to fucking decide everything. You don't understand how much of a nightmare that is for me. I am a non-binary, bisexual, polyamorous person with ADHD. You're going to have to pick the restaurant. There's no way I'm making fucking cosmic decisions.
Yeah.
I would be like, everybody gets food. We can have health care.
I
And
don't know.
then
That
the
that
universe
seems
would
like a
probably be
bridge too
like,
far.
I guess we'll try it. I don't know. So,
Well, yeah, I'm excited to see where this goes moving forward. A big thing that was in the end of this arc is that, everybody views Armageddon as a big ending, but it is a beginning. And this is truly the end of the first era of Spawn, and we're into the next one.
yeah.
So,
Yep.
before we go, George, do you have anything you'd like to recommend to our listeners this week?
Yeah, sure. I will recommend the comic Headlopper by Andrew Maclean and I believe Mike Spicer. I'll have to
I
double
think so.
check that.
You see the new announcement?
But yes, I actually didn't. That's interesting that there was one.
Just a new oversized #1 issue that follows up on Volume 4. Headlopper, y'all.
Another colorist.
We're big fans of Headlopper over here. Oh God,
It's so good.
Andrew Maclean, please do a Spawn book. That would be sick.
Oh, that would be killer. I would love that.
But
So,
they
yeah,
put out
there you have
he
it.
put out a little trailer for the first issue that we found out in the or in the description was actually there was going to be a Headlopper animated series. And
Oh yeah.
one streamer got bought by another big company and it ended up falling by the wayside.
Collapses, yeah. But
Yeah.
the comics are great and I highly recommend them. What about you, Pierce? What's your recommendation?
Over the weekend, V and I were looking for stuff to watch, and so we ended up doing a little double feature of it's less popular now, but it was pretty popular post-pandemic. I want to say like 2022, 2023 of like, let's make movies about how a product got made.
Oh yeah, like there was the Founder and like
Yeah.
the one about
Founder actually pretty
Nike
good.
shoes. The Founder pretty good. Yeah, I mean Michael
So
Keaton's a
here's
great
the thing.
actor.
There's a good amount of these that are like pretty good, and then some of them that are actually absolute dog shit. We watched Tetris with Taron Egerton, which if you don't know the story of Tetris getting
Yeah,
out
it's an
of the
interesting story.
Soviet Union, it's
Taron
kind of
Egerton
crazy.
seems locked into playing amorphous historical biopic roles.
Well, the funny thing about this movie is it's produced by Matthew Vaughn, who did, First
Right.
Class and Kick Ass. So it has like, he didn't direct it, but it definitely has like, oh, you can feel where he was like punching. He was like,
Kingsman.
hey, I'm going to give you a couple notes. You got my boy Taron over here. And
Yeah.
here you go. Tetris, is it a perfect film? Absolutely not. Is it extremely watchable and Taron Egerton is very charming? Yes, I love that guy. He's great.
Sure.
We double featured it with Blackberry,
I don't know
which
that
is
one.
the movie about blackberries, starring Glenn
Great.
Howerton and Jay Baruchel.
I mean, I like Glenn Howerton.
But
For
it's
watching
directed by Matt Johnson, who is of Nirvana the band, the show, and now Nirvana the band, the show, the movie.
I have heard of it. I don't know what it is, which
They're
is
like a
embarrassing.
Canadian comedy troupe type deal.
Okay.
Blackberry
Gotcha.
is so much better. The fact that it won no awards is fucked up. It is so good. It has no business being as good as it is based on its subject matter,
Right.
There's also there's one character that every time he appeared on screen and did something, Vanessa just looked at me and I was like, yeah, I'm really getting nailed to the wall here by this one character. George, I kid you not, you will also be nailed to the wall by this character. This is the kind of character that could have a Spawn podcast.
Great.
But you'll have a great time.
I don't know
It's a
why
great
they keep
movie.
specifically targeting us.
It's because we need to be known in the larger culture is really what it is, 2026, the year of spawnography, but I guess 2023 was too, before we even knew we were starting the show. Anyway, those are my recommendations. I recommend doing weird double features. It's fun.
There you go.
Try and find one thing in common about them and just watch them back to back. And for me, it was movies about products. But
there you go.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. If you like the show, rate, review, subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all those places. If there's somewhere we're not and we should be, let us know. You can email us at spawnographypod@gmail.com. But that's all for now. George, before we go, for God so loved the world,
He gave his only begotten spawn.
See you later, Hellspawn. Spawnography is recorded in Athens, Georgia, and Queens, New York. It's produced by me, Pierce Lyden. Our theme music and logo were composed by George Marston. Episodes come out every Monday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. If you like the show, please rate, review, subscribe. You can find us on social media at Spawnography or at SpawnographyPod. If you'd like to reach out to us directly, you can do so at spawnographypod@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and until next time, see you later, Hellspawn.